Ladies and gentlemen, brand new Rolling Heritage video, and today we're gonna work on this Volvo 240 behind me, because we need to swap this car from a M47 5-speed gearbox to an AW71 automatic gearbox. So yeah guys, you're right, this is not my own car, this is a customer car, that's why the license plate is taped off, but we are gonna swap this car to an AW71, and that is this gearbox down there. For the next step, I like to take off the gear shift cover. So it's actually the rubber piece you see down there. We need to take that off because if we lift the car up, we can then completely do everything underneath the car. To get this thing off, you need to lift it up on the bottom, and there should be 4 pressed in rivet nuts. And you can undo those clips with a tool like this. It's very easy, but that should be it. In this case, it's also connected with some 8mm bolts. So to give you guys a clearer image of what you need to do, this is inside of the car. You will have your gear shift lever. You will have a bracket which is positioned like this. Your first gear should be pressing against this bracket. So if you need to adjust this, you will just put it in first gear. Now you mount this bracket right against the white the Teflon knob over there, and when it's positioned like this, you will have first gear, and if you lift the knob up, it will go over the bracket, and then you will have reverse. It's that easy. But for now, we can place this all very carefully onto there so we don't lose it. And then we have a clip, and I'm hoping you guys can see it. Like there you have a little hole in there. And we need to press these together. So I actually picked up my wrong pliers for this. So guys, if you have this thing off, you can just leave it like there, but now your whole gear shift knob is loose. Right underneath over there, you can see that little axle pin, that one. If you press that out, which is held in by 1 hex screw on the bottom, you can then push it to the side and you can pick up your whole gear shifter from the top, which will make it very easy to drop the gearbox down, because you have nothing that can catch on the inside of the car. So guys, car's up on the lift, and look at this. We have our drive shaft, prop shaft, how you want to call it. We have 4 bolts on the back. We have 1 center bearing with a bracket which is held on by 2 bolts, 1 over there, 1 over there, and 2 over here. Then we go to the front. We have the prop shaft which is held on by a hardy disc. This is a rubber disc which prevent vibrations in the drivetrain. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and the hardy disc is connected to the gearbox by 1, 2, 3. Then we have the gearbox mount, 1, 2, 3, 4, and your center bolt, that is your gearbox mount on the gearbox itself. So this is actually the bracket which holds the complete gearbox in, and this is just your rubber mounting point which you see over there, and they break a lot. And over here we have a clutch cable, which is of course going to go out of the car. Over there we have our starter motor, which is normally held on by nuts, but over here it's just screwed in, it seems. Yeah, I don't see a nut on there. And over here we have a bracket which holds on the exhaust onto the engine. We have a very dirty engine block and a whole lot of bolts to connect the gearbox to the engine itself. So we need to take that all apart, and then if you look up top over there, that is the hex nut you see, which holds in this pin, and if that pin is disconnected, you can slide out your complete gear shift lever. So that will be done from the bottom. But for now, we're gonna grab some tools. If you want to hurt your back, do it on the floor, on jack stands. But yeah, if you can get a lift, it's doable on your own. It's not that hard. It's just dismounting everything, and it will pull right out of there. One very important step on removing and mounting drive shafts is they are made from 2 pieces, and those are balanced together in a factory, maybe the Volvo factory, maybe like a machine shop later on in the car's life. But this is what I like to do. This is what I have put on this drive shaft. I made one arrow and I made 2 dots in here. I was trying to make a line, but my center punch was just not working. But it is a mark, and as you can see, the arrow points at the dots, so that means that if I take this part out of this part, I will always be able to match them up how they came off the car. This is very important. If you don't do this, you will get a wobbly drive shaft. So make sure that you mark your drive shaft before you take it off the car. And of course, when you put it back, make sure the lines match up. And a great tip in this, don't match these with paint markers or normal markers, because if you will clean your drive shaft when you have taken it out, or if your hands are just like mine a bit dirty, then you will be able to wipe off the paint as soon as you take your drive shaft out. So if you take it out and you just grab it right on the paint, it might be gone. So make sure, don't use a marker, just use a center punch or anything else, or just take it out in one piece and never take it out of each other. But just a friendly reminder. So guys, no more drive shaft, that's over there. And as you might have seen in the time lapse, I like to put this gearbox cross member back, because that means I can now take away this thing and I can lower the car down. What I was telling, if you want to disconnect this gearbox, you need to undo this mount over here. But there are 2 engine mounts, one on the left, one on the right, and this gearbox mount. If you undo this one and take the gearbox out, your engine can fall down. That means that your engine mounts will be put under an enormous amount of stress. And that is not a good thing, because these engine mounts are designed to shear off in an accident. So if you put them under a lot of stress, you will get engine mount failure. And you don't want that. The way to fix that is one of these things. The red thing you see behind me. That thing. This is what I'm talking about. So over here we have an engine hoist, which is standing on your spring purchase. So here are your shock absorbers and your springs connected to the front wheel. And this is a very strong point of the car. So you have these engine stands, which you just place right onto there. I have 2 chains, one to the thermostat housing where there is a factory hook, and there's one over here with a factory lifting point. And this just keeps the engine not completely up, but just slightly out of like tension. And if I'm correct, plop, we have now a shifter. And right now we have everything inside of the car disconnected. We have everything underneath the car from the drive shaft disconnected. So the thing we need to do now is get point A, the starter motor out, but that will come out when we take the gearbox out, and then everything else will just hopefully slide out the car right away, so we can put in this bad boy. So guys, the most important part, which every one of you will hate, is the most top bolt of the bell housing. To get that off, every bolt from the starter motor to that side, unless those two on the bottom, are 18 millimeter and 18 millimeters socket on a swivel bit, and then you will take two long extensions. If you take the two long extensions and you lay them on top of the gearbox, you can then just put a ratchet from the gearbox hole down, and you can just turn the bolt freely out of there. Ta-da-da-da. Hello, my little friend. That's your top bolt. Let's put it over there. And now we have only one bolt left, which is over, well, can I see that with my camera? I don't know. Over here. You see that bolt? That's the last one we need to do. And that's partially the same story. Get a socket extension from here, run it all the way to the back until you have room to put a ratchet on there, and then take them out. The gearbox is out, and I'm going to show you guys what the problem was with getting the gearbox out of this car. We have this small bracket. So it's this bracket, and inside of this is a sensor. This is your BDP sensor, that's how we call it in the Netherlands. I don't know if it's the same name in English or not, but this sensor sits right over there in the engine. The bad thing about this is that when you're taking out the gearbox, which is over there, this part where your starter motor is in will actually hit over here. You can see where it hits. That's where on every single car you will see some scuff marks, because when you're taking it out, you're turning the engine, because normally the start motor is over here, but you cannot go here. So you pull it out against this transmission tunnel, and then you turn the gearbox. But on carburetor cars, you don't have this sensor because it's not injection and you don't need it. But on this car, you need it, and you cannot get the engine down enough because it's of course in the hoist. And even if I undo that hoist, it will not come down enough to then take the gearbox off. So what I did, I went up here with my arm and I undid both bolts, and then I took off this bracket. We're gonna take this off, and those are all, I think, 6mm hex screws. So we're gonna get this clutch off. This is actually your pressure plate, and inside of there is the clutch. I will also show you guys, for the guys that are trying to convert a automatic car to a manual car, I will show you guys how to position your flywheel that it's correctly positioned for your sensor, and I will also show you the difference between this type of flywheel and the flywheel that is laying over there. So we are gonna take out the radiator, and we're gonna take out the clutch cable. So this cable can come out, we need to do that. We can then also get out the pedal box with clutch, and we can put that pedal box inside of the car. So now we're gonna get the coolant out, and if you look over there, that is your coolant drain. That little pipe over there, that's your coolant drain. And we need to drain the coolant because we have a new radiator. And an automatic radiator has these two nipples for an oil cooler attachment. we have a difficult part, because now we need to dive underneath here and take out the clutch pedal. So this thing should go in there. And I wonder if I can do this without changing the whole backboard. So the black panels which you will have there and over there, where all your brake booster stuff is connected to. Because if you need to take that out to swap that, that will be a nightmare. The first thing you need to do is take off the top cover. That's just some screws. This one, you can take this cover off. It can be a bit stuck. Normally it just pops off like that. And then you can take off this rubber piece over here. I'm just doing that with the camera in my hand because that's a bit easier for now. And then this piece comes out carefully. What we need to get to is this bracket, this one. And that's connected by that bolt. And yeah, you guys can see it better than I can, that bolt. And two up top, I don't know where, somewhere around there. Oh, there's another one, I think. But we're gonna undo some bolts underneath here, and when I have it out, I will show you guys if it's possible, first of all, and what you need to do it yourself. So guys, over here you have your clutch pedal and your brake pedal of a manual car. And how these two are connected to your frame of the car is actually by one bolt over here, one bolt over here, and one bolt over here. And on this side, it's one over here, one over there, one over there, and one over there. Nothing over here, it's that easy. 4 bolts on the back, and there are 3 bolts on the top. And like I said, you can get to them by taking out your gauge cluster. That's it. It's that easy. I removed the complete gauge cluster. I removed many parts of the interior. I completely took apart the dashboard mounting surface area on the left, so I could pull the dashboard backwards. All because this car has air conditioning. Here we have the engine, and an engine is a pilot bearing over there. I was trying to use a puller like this, but you cannot pull it. So yeah, what can you do? Well, there's a very neat trick, and it includes my lunch. So an old mechanic trick includes my lunch, which is over there. And I took some of my lunch. This is pieces of bread. And weirdly enough, you can take out a pilot bearing using bread. Look at this, one nice shim and one clean flywheel. Sandblasted it for a bit, inside a bit better because I need to see the arrow, but this will do just fine, and it's better than a finish like that. We don't get happy from that. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna throw this on the engine. And if you look at this, you have just seen me put in a new seal. And the way I do that is I drill a 2.5 millimeter hole somewhere in the side, like right in the middle of the seal. And then I screw in the Phillips head, and then I try to wiggle it out by pulling the Phillips head. Putting it in is just, I like to use a little bit of oil on the inside of the seal. You might say why, because it's a seal. Well, I like to get it hooked on the top, then pull it back until it plops around the crankshaft, and then you can smack it in place by using the existing, well, not existing, but the old seal that came out of the engine. And then it will look like this. So this looks very nice and clean. I've cleaned the complete engine. I've cleaned a bit of the oil pan because this will all be covered up later on. So now we're gonna mount the flex plate. Then we can mount back the starter motor and hopefully this thing will start. Well, that's clear, she runs. So that means we have the right and the correct flywheel for this car, or flex plate, or how you want to call it. But that means that we now need to put the gearbox back in, and not back, but the new one, the AW71. So guys, we have been pretty busy the last few days, and this car is coming along greatly. So we have a torque plate and we have a running engine, and that whole system is actually pretty easy to understand if you know what you're talking about and if you can understand it. But to show you guys what I mean, I'm gonna make some little setup on the workbench, and then that way I hope you guys will understand this complete concept from the front to back. To make it very easy for you guys, you have two types of flywheels. One is this one. This is a flat one. This is a flat flywheel. It's this thickness. Over here you can see the friction material right between there, and this is your pressure plate. Over here is the one that came out of this 240, and that's because this one is from an injection model. This one is from a carburetor model. It means this pressure plate and the whole clutch assembly is different. These plates are different because I think there's a difference in size, but I could be wrong, not sure. And this one is bolted down over here, and its pressure plate is over here, and it's dirty. But because there is a difference in height in the flywheel, as you can see, that's why they call this a dog dish, because it looks like a bowl where your dog will feed from. So that's a dog dish flywheel, and that's a normal flywheel. Now we're going to get to the tricky part. Why does an injection car uses this one instead of this one? This one, as you can see, has holes all over the side, except for here. That's why it's marked. That means this is the point where let's just say a magnetic sensor can get a pulse, because over here there is no hole. So it will get another reading than on the holes you see. And that's why this one has all these holes drilled in there. If we go to this plate, you can clearly see on the side there are no marks at all on this flywheel. The system you guys see over here is actually a flex plate. So why does an automatic need this instead of a flywheel? An automatic runs on pressure. That's why it has a huge donut on here, and the donut is filled with oil. If the donut spins, you will get a circular motion, which means centrifugal forces and go on, and that will mean that you have pressure. So the oil pressure is everything that drives an automatic gearbox. Over here on the top, you can see this bracket. This is we call it a BDP sensor. And that means this sensor needs to be aligned with the top dead center of your engine. If you turn the engine over and you remove the first spark plug, so the one most on the front of the engine, you hold your thumb over the spark plug hole, and then you use a socket to turn over the engine, you will feel that at some point you will get pressure on your thumb. That means that you have a compression stroke. That's the first thing you need to check out. And if you have the compression stroke, you will also need to check out with a screwdriver slightly in your spark plug hole if the cylinder is at the top of the stroke. So it will go up and down. You need to be under compression stroke, so the pressure, and it will needs to be on the most top part that you can have. I have an arrow over here, and that means there is an arrow on the back of this plate. I will show you guys. You will see an arrow pointing towards this hole. That means this hole is where the arrow is. That's why I marked the arrow on the side that we are looking at right now. We need to have this arrow aligned up with this sensor at the TDC point. So we're going to turn this, and now you see that this arrow is pointing towards the sensor, the BDP sensor, which means the holes we saw on the flywheel on the workbench, it has one spot where there are no holes. This ring you see over here is actually what drives your ignition. So if the arrow points upward against the sensor, it means that your blank spot over here is right about the starter motor. This plate can be mounted 8 different ways because you have 8 different bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can turn it 8 ways. You need to turn it the way that the arrow points at the sensor at TDC, and that this plate will be automatically at the point of the starter. That's it. Over here we have the torque converter. And it's this thing. It's really oily. This thing shoves inside of the gearbox. It will act like a huge pressure pump. On top of these parts you will also find that some cars have this flex plate. The difference between this one and this one is that this one has the rings for your Bosch injection, like we just talked about, and this one has nothing. And that's because this one is either for a carburetor car, so a Stromberg car, a Solex car, or anything else, or this one is, like in this case, from a K-Jet car. So guys, over here we have this wheel, and over here we have the bolts. When this torque converter is in the right spot, you can then use this way to put in your bolts. Layout, you will have your gearbox and you have this delicious donut. And as you can see, this donut has 2 slots. So when you're putting in your gearbox, you need to make sure that when this thing slides in there, you can see this. Then you will have a huge ridge here, and you can turn it. And there should be a spot. Click, that's that. And when it clicks, you can see it lays about flush with the gearbox, and that means that when the gearbox mounts up to the engine, this will be almost to your flex plate. So first get this one in your gearbox, get it seated all the way, then throw the gearbox in the engine and the engine together. So throw the gearbox in the car, and then when the gearbox is in the car with your torque converter, then mount the torque converter up to your flywheel by the little holes you see when you take that bottom cover off, which mounts up with the lower side of the gearbox. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still busy with the automatic swap, but we had a huge problem because one of the oil lines was actually broken. So what happened is this. Over here we have 2 lines coming out of the gearbox, the automatic gearbox. So one is up top, as you can see, that one, and there is one over here. And those lines can be like this one. Underneath all the stuff, there's a line. It's all folded up. That's how I got this gearbox. This is from the customer, from the owner of this car. But the thing we have right now is that This coupling you see over here, this adapter, there was another one over here, and that one was leaking on the back side of this ring. The reason for that is because the line was just snapped. So what I did, I took this line, and this one is actually from that gearbox, and I made it run up over there, and then you can see there, you can see the rubber hose. On most of these automatic kits, you will have your radiator, which will have an oil cooler inside of here. You can see one line and two line down there. And this one came with this cooler also attached. But I looked at some original Volvo pictures of the green books and stuff, and that showed me that this one is not original. It might be for some models, I don't know. This came off a K-Jet car, but this one is not in the original drawings. And that rubber hose you see over there was actually connected one side to here. Then you had that oil cooler, and it ended up going over here and then in the radiator. So I connected those with this rubber line, the other rubber hose. So we have one rubber hose over there and one rubber hose over there. So what we're gonna do right now, we are gonna throw in this drive shaft. It has a new bearing on there and a new rubber. So it should be kind of plug and play. So that means 8 bolts, and we should have a car that will turn into drive, reverse, neutral, park, everything else. And that means we can also get this thing off of the lift if we need to. Let's go. So guys, I have installed everything. The gearbox is in, of course. The drive shaft is in. I have also installed the gear shifter over here. So I could select gears if I want to. It's like flashing the reverse lights at the moment between the shifts. So I'm not sure how to fix that, but we'll see that in a moment. Let's just start her up. So I'm gonna put her in park. That's it. Handbrake is down. She's in park, running. Let's put it in drive. We have reverse. This is neutral. Also works. And we have drive. And it goes back in park. We're now in park, that's it. Perfect. Perfect. Job done, almost. Hey guys, it's a brand new day. So, what I'm doing is I'm wiring up the overdrive, and I thought every cable would be in the car, but this car has air conditioning and this whole wiring loom is just butchered. So what I do is I take the original fuse box and I just make my own wiring loom. Over here we have the car, and this all looks very scary and very dangerous. This panel, you can pull it forward. I'd like to put the cables back on there so you know where they go. The cluster, you shouldn't take it apart. I did it because I didn't know if the circuit board was okay, because the light turned out to work on this fitting, and when I pressed it in that fitting, it didn't work anymore. Over here we have a relay and we have some wires. I'm gonna throw this all in the schematics for you, so you can all check this out for yourself. You have 2 gray wires, as you can see, and the gray wires are actually coming from your gear shifter, and those are this button over here. Then you have one blue wire connected with the gray wire on one pin of the relay. Then you have the blue wire is actually the power, the gray wires are the button. So that's switching on the power in the relay. It's that easy. You have one black cable which goes over there, that's the ground. We have one yellow cable in the middle, and the yellow cable in the middle goes to a pin on the back of this cluster. Over there, you can slightly see it. This pin all the way on the side, and that lights up your lamp. And what happens when you turn on the ignition? You turn it on, you can press the button, you can hear the relay click. This is the relay. I will hold it in my hand while holding the camera. You can hear it click, and look at this. I click it on, well actually off, but and on, off and on, off and on. So I press the button. This is all factory, all stock, just how it should work from the factory, unless it's not using any of the original wires of the car. The way I do that is I don't trust the wires in the car, because there is so much butchered in here. As you can see on this is all new. There are so many relays behind here. This car's air conditioning, it's running on LPG, which is liquid petroleum gas. So that's some kind of gas we use a lot of here in the Netherlands to power our cars. But long story short, so guys, if you mount the gear shifter, actually the gear selector of your automatic gearbox, you might see that you have two cables running out from it. Actually, I think 4 in total. There are 2 gray wires, that's of course for your relay. You have one red and white wire, which is for the lighting of your PRNDL 21 or 12, and that's just your interior like lighting that goes on your interior switch, and all those cables are underneath the dash. Underneath your dashboard there is like a loop. I like to call it the loop cable. It's a connector with just a cable that goes out and back in, and that is actually your safety starter, how you want to call it. So that prevents you from starting the car when it's not in park. And on an automatic you'll have this one, the blue one, it's actually a blue wire and a red wire, and in there goes a black one and a blue yellow one. That's for your reverse lighting. You have this red wire which goes in the brown one, and you have these 2 blues which goes in the blue, yellow and the pink one. So guys, the car is behind me and she is done. It has been driving for the past week and the customer is very pleased with everything that we did. So I think this is a successful transmission swap. And if you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Volvo stuff, classic car stuff, and go on. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.